and cry, indict him for treason, for collusion, for campaign finance violations. Now, I got news for you. There is no law that says a campaign cannot accept information from a foreign government. If that were the case, everyone on a campaign who talks to a foreign national is committing a crime. And for you geniuses out there, there can be no treason since we're not at war with Russia. And by the way, the DNC and Hillary colluded with the Ukrainians to get information on Trump at the same time. And real covert operatives who understand meddling in other countries' elections say this is not how Russia would meddle in the election.
That's not how it's done. Let's be clear. The Russians are masters at this kind of thing. They know exactly what they're doing. And no, it would be done in the dead of night, and you wouldn't see any evidence of it. It would not happen in the middle of a Senate office building in broad daylight.
So now Donald Jr. is at fault for agreeing to meet someone to get opposition research. Now, as someone who's run for office 5 times, if the devil called me and said he wanted to set up a meeting to give me opposition research on my opponent, I'd be on the first trolley to hell to get it. And any politician who tells you otherwise is a bald-faced liar. So why the frenzy? Right after Hillary lost the election, Barack Obama imposes sanctions on Russia for hacking the DNC. Now, we all knew that Obama knew all along what Russia was up to, but he did nothing because he and the idiot pollsters predicted Hillary would win. So he felt no need to jeopardize his great relationship with Russia. That's what I said. Obama's great relationship with Russia. It was Obama in 2009 who gave the reset button to make nice with Russia. And when it came out, he knew about the hacking and the possible impact on the election. He says he told Putin to cut it out. Now, I personally don't even think he said that. So, the Russians hacked the DNC emails exposing two-faced Hillary and her lies, Donna Brazile giving Hillary questions for the debate, Debbie Wasserman Schultz knocking out Sanders to clear the playing field for her girlfriend Hillary, and Barack does nothing. Why? For your information, meddling in another country's election is not new to the United States. Barack Obama's State Department gave $300,000 to a not-for-profit in Israel to defeat Netanyahu. And for all you snowflakes out there, the U.S. has been meddling in other elections in other countries for decades.
We staged a coup in Guatemala a number of decades ago where we overthrew the government of Guatemala. We replaced the elected government of Iran with the Shah in 1953. We have done this and literally deposed leaders and replaced them with people who would do what we wanted them to.
And it was Barack Obama who ended the missile defense shield plan for Poland and the Czech Republic. When he reneged, the Russians cheered, calling him brave, thanking him for the gift he gave Russia. And let me ask the Democrats out there, what did Barack Obama mean when he said this?
After my election, I have more flexibility.
Yeah, I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir.
You remember that hot mic moment? What message was Obama sending to Vladimir that he didn't want us, the American people, to know about? What was he willing to do for Putin that was so dangerous that it could have risked his losing the election? You tell me. And consider this. After drawing a red line in the sand, should Assad use chemical weapons on his people in Syria, Obama wimps out like a wuss and he does nothing. Think that one through. Obama then puts Putin in charge of overseeing the elimination of chemical weapons just used against the people in Syria. It tells you Putin puts pressure on Obama to let him, Putin, handle the situation for his friend and ally Assad. And we put the fox in charge of the hen house and clearly failed since chemical weapon elimination deadlines were missed repeatedly. So, folks, it's Barack Obama who's pals with Putin. He watched like a wuss as Russia invaded and annexed Ukraine and the Crimean Peninsula in 2014. And just to bring you up to date, it was his Department of Justice that let in the Russian lawyer Veselnitskaya without a visa and let her in under extraordinary circumstances, allowing her to then sit in the front row of a congressional hearing. And it was under Barack Obama that 20% of our uranium was sold to Putin with a $145 million kickback to the Clinton Foundation, that organized criminal enterprise that was a money laundering operation, and a $500,000 speech fee paid to Bill Clinton by a Kremlin-connected company. So I, for one, am sick and tired of Russia, Russia, Russia. Put up or shut up. And a message to those Republicans in Congress. You did nothing when the Democrats assaulted our democracy with Fast and Furious, the sales of weapons to the Mexican cartels, the Clinton Foundation, the sale of our uranium to Russia, Susan Rice lying about Benghazi. I want Loretta Lynch, Susan Rice, Hillary Clinton, and the rest of that gang under oath. So why don't you Republicans start supporting President Trump, face down this Russian nonsense, and start working for us, the American people? That includes health care. Otherwise, you're no better to us than the Democrats. And that's my open. Tell me what you think on my Facebook page or Twitter, hashtag Judge Jeanine. Okay. Joining me now, President Trump's Deputy Assistant, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Good evening, Doctor.
Good evening, and let me just take my blood pressure medicine. That was quite an intro. Thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing. You've had quite a week, Dr. Gorka. You and the mainstream media have kind of been going at it, yes?
We had some fun. We had some fun this week. We've got a great team. We've got Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Sean Spicer, and Kellyanne. But I'm glad to support them, and it was fun this week.
Well, what I liked most was when you told, who was it, CNN, that Nick at Night beats them in the ratings?
Yeah. They're at position 13 nationally, CNN 13. Fox, of course, is number 1. And Nick at Night, so comedy reruns and kid shows, are at number 11. That's the crisis of credibility in the fake news industrial complex, Judge.
Well, you know, it's got to be frustrating for you. I mean, you know, the president is a man who works 20 out of 24 hours a day. You guys, I'm sure, haven't had sleep since he got in there. It's got to be frustrating that you can't get out to the American people what actually they are doing and you are doing to help us out because of this meddling by the mainstream media.
I see it a little bit differently, Judge, because, you know, we live inside the Acela corridor, so we're inside this bubble. But if you get out of the bubble, the mainstream, you know, the America that elected the president to be the commander-in-chief, they know exactly what they're doing, and they couldn't care less. This Russia collusion delusion is irrelevant. People see the jobs coming back. They see the price of gas. They see the fact that this week we destroyed the caliphate. That should be the news. Look at what CNN's doing. CNN, the rest of the mainstream media, it's Russia, Russia, Russia. They talk more about Russia than America. It's like Pravda from the Cold War. You remember Pravda?
Yes.
They talk more about Russia than America, and they've lost credibility. And that's why the president's Twitter feed is so important, because he just jumps right over them, and he tells the American people, we are making America great again, Judge.
And you know what's interesting is that there is no fear or concern on the part of this president in working with Putin. It's almost as though he can let all this cacophony, this noise around him, he can kind of go like this and brush it off his shoulder and do business. And it seems that if we can work with Putin to fight ISIS, we're doing it.
Look, the president is a patriot and a pragmatist. He looks at relations with Moscow with a steely eye. I myself, my father was arrested and tortured and imprisoned by communists, so there's no love lost for me when it comes to the Kremlin. But hang on, this is, along with America, we are the two most powerful nuclear nations in the world. We both face terrorism, and we are going to need, or we would like to have, some kind of cooperation with Russia on key issues like Syria, like ISIS. And if people think that's a bad idea, then they don't understand how the world works.
And, you know, one of the things, Doctor, that I didn't say in my open is that, you know, this Iran, the nuclear deal that Obama did, and $150 billion and then $400 million on, you know, on pallets and unmarked planes, they're yelling death to America. The media could care less. Their hatred for Donald Trump is so intense, it's almost frightening.
Think about all these people that are obsessing on this fake news, literally lies, not one piece of evidence of anything done illegally by the Trump campaign or this administration, despite Hillary Clinton, her husband, the DNC, the Ukrainian government, totally complicit in all kinds of incredibly shady deals. But what do they want to talk about? They want to forget that the people who are criticizing us now were for the Iran deal, made the JCPOA possible, told Mitt Romney, do you remember during the debate, oh, Russia, really?
Yeah.
The 1980s want their foreign policy back. These people have no integrity, but we don't care, Judge, because we are keeping to the agenda that got Donald J. Trump elected. This isn't a distraction. People think that this is what we talk about in the West Wing. We couldn't care less. We are working, we're pushing forward, and we're making America great again.
Sebastian Gorka, it's always good to have you on Justice. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Judge.
All right. And Colonel David Hunt is still ahead tonight with a closer look at the progress the administration is doing in taking down ISIS for once and for all. But next, liberal lawyer and Hillary Clinton supporter Alan Dershowitz is on deck with a take you may find surprising on this whole Russia business with the Trump White House. And then I invite you to join me for what was truly a spiritual experience for me, a sneak peek inside the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. I put on my hard hat for a tour of this remarkable building, and you're coming too, so stay with us. So what are we seeing here?
150-foot long digital ceiling where we'll rotate biblical art and images throughout the entire day.
Breaking tonight, Republican Senator John McCain's office says the senator and former candidate for president is resting comfortably tonight after undergoing surgery to remove a blood clot from above his left eye. The operation, we're told, was a success, and the senator will be back to work soon. But the big question tonight, what effect will this have on the Senate health care bill? Keep it on Fox News Channel for the latest developments. And meantime, the liberal feeding frenzy continues with nonstop attacks on the Trump administration over the Russian controversy. My next guest is a prominent Harvard law professor and liberal author who is also a Hillary Clinton supporter. And he says he doesn't see any crime at this point in Donald Trump Jr.'s behavior. Alan Dershowitz joins me now by Skype. Good evening, Professor.
Good evening. I mean, you know, I'm shocked as a civil libertarian and a criminal lawyer and a liberal in how liberals are, some of them at least, prepared to stretch existing laws, talk about treason, talk about other kinds of crimes that just don't exist when it comes to the facts as we know them about this meeting. And so I'm going to keep insisting that we stop accusing people of crime when there's just no evidence of crime.
Well, let me be a little more specific. Under the campaign finance laws, I mean, there is a claim that if you get something of value, and they're alleging that information of value from a foreign national could be, stretched out to mean, words. Is that something that's ever been prosecuted?
Of course not. And if it were to be prosecuted, the First Amendment would trump. A candidate has the right to get information from whatever source the information comes. It's very much like the New York Times publishing the Pentagon Papers case, or the Washington Post publishing material stolen by Snowden and Manning. You don't prosecute the newspaper. They have a First Amendment right. And you don't prosecute the candidate or the candidate's son. They have a First Amendment right to get the material. If the material was obtained unlawfully, you prosecute if you can the people who obtain the material. But there is a First Amendment right of a candidate to use information. And so you can't include information under the campaign finance law. That would be unconstitutional.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. But I mean, you know, there's some smart people out there are alleging it. But at this point, I don't believe any of it. But let's talk about treason. How can they even use the word treason? I mean, you've got Nancy Pelosi and the rest of them. Nancy Pelosi, I believe, has said, after these latest revelations, it's clear we've suffered a desecration of our democracy and collusion has been proven. By the way, what is collusion?
Collusion is not a crime unless it's commit a criminal act. But the treason thing really upsets me because it so flies in the face of history. When we wrote our Constitution, the British were using treason very broadly against their kings. And so the framers of our Constitution wrote the most specific provision of treason ever put into a Constitution. Treason shall consist only of basically waging war against the United States, coming armed against the United States. It is inconceivable that anybody who has any knowledge of the Constitution or of American history would argue that a private citizen, by securing information for a campaign from somebody who may be a surrogate of the government, has committed treason. It's just so ahistorical and so contrary to what the law is that we ought to stop talking about it, because we're miseducating American people. We're miseducating young people. People come over to me and say, is it really treason? And I tell them, go back and read the Constitution. Look, the good thing is young people really are looking at the Constitution these days. A kid came over to me recently and asked me about the emoluments clause. She had thought emoluments were a kind of facial cream, and now we talk about emoluments. So now we're talking about treason. So we're going to learn a lesson. But I think it's so dangerous to democracy to throw around these criminal law terms and to just accuse people willy-nilly. It was just as bad when they did it, in my view, to Hillary Clinton, when they yelled, lock her up, and try to expand the espionage laws to cover her conduct. I'm an equal opportunity critic of both sides of the aisle when they try to criminalize political differences.
And because we need to go, I want to tell everyone there is no doubt that you are an equal opportunity critic. And tell us the name of your upcoming book that you're writing.
Well, it's called Trumped Up, and it's about the politicization, the criminalization of politics, and how dangerous it is to democracy. It will not only be about Trump, though. It will be about Congressman DeLay, about various other
all of them.
Charged, and Stanley. What's his name? The guy who was Silver yesterday. The Second Circuit ruled in a way that makes it clear that this can't be a crime.
All right, Professor Alan Dershowitz, we got to go. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.
All right. And Colonel David Hunt is still ahead. But next, the resistance and its Russia obsession. Amy Holmes and Chris Hom standing by to debate, as well as some of the real issues of making news out of Washington this week. I'm here at the Museum of the Bible, about to go in, and if you can't tell from what I'm wearing, we're at the hard hat stage. But going forward, this place is going to open in November. You're not going to believe what you're about to see. Welcome back to Justice. President Trump taking to Twitter earlier today to slam what he labels the Russian hoax story and hailing the surging stock market since his inauguration. Here with reaction to that and all the news of the week, Rasmussen Report's political analyst Amy Holmes, as well as radio show host and former aide to Chuck Schumer, also known as Senator Schumer, Chris Hahn. All right, guys, one of the things I want to talk about right away is the fact that we just had this breaking news that Senator McCain, following a routine physical, underwent a procedure to remove a blood clot from above his left eye. Now, it appears that he is in good health, but in light of what's going on with the health care bill, and I'm not quite sure, we're looking into this right now, how it affects it, but if there are only 99 instead of 100 senators, and if Senator Kaine was one of these senators who had a reservation about how the Republican health care bill. It's quite possible if he's not there for the vote, if the vote is held this week, it might actually go through. If we've got 50 out of 99.
Well, yeah. I think Chris and I are going to probably agree on this.
Well, I don't know. I'm asking. What's the impact? You think he's going to come out of the hospital and vote?
They've wheeled people in to vote many a time in the United States Senate, right, Amy? I mean, we've seen this happen before. And quite frankly, if he's able to lift his hand and say aye, they will wheel him in to do that.
Yeah. Mitch McConnell would not let that vote go if he has it.
Yeah, but I think he's the least of their problems.
He's kind of somewhat not inclined to vote. He's the one with the Republican with the reservations.
Right, and here's the problem for the Republican Party. They can only afford to lose 2 Republicans. We don't expect to see any Democrats.
But if the number is now 99 instead of 100 and we lost someone that we didn't have in the first place, I mean, that's where I'm kind of going, guys.
You think you want to change the world with 49 votes?
Well, they changed the world with the nuclear option. Come on.
I doubt it.
All right, let's talk about that nuclear option. I'm going to ask you to look at a full screen. We've got nominations and confirmations sent to the Senate, first term through June 30th. As you can see up there, we've got Obama had 336 nominations and through the end of June got 186 approved and confirmed, and President Trump 242, 50. Are you proud of that, Chris?
Well, the president has to send the nominations to the Senate before the Senate can act on them. And while
he's
now gotten some numbers
242
at this point, he's got 242. But if you look at where he was in May, it was about 120. Now, most of these people are not filling out all their paperwork the proper way.
So it's
and
the paperwork.
Takes some time. And let's face it.
So everyone was a genius in the Obama administration.
The Obama administration had a real transition.
Look, we also know that it is a stated strategy of the Democrats in the Senate to obstruct this president, and particularly Mr. Schumer obstructing the president. So I think that's what you're seeing happening to President Trump with his nominees. But you know who hurts the most? The American people. The American people who don't have these nominees in their positions to be able to do the work.
You and I have had this conversation many times on the show in the last 6 months. He is not sending the nominations in a timely way. Granted, he's got 240.
We have not had this conversation many times.
President Obama, by this point, had, even by your graphic, had 100 more people sent to the Senate.
So what you're saying is these numbers are not accurate, that really we don't have 242 in front of the Senate. Well, then how do you explain Chuck Schumer and the resistance? Resist. They won't do anything.
Well, you know what? It worked for McConnell, and it's going to work for Chuck.
It didn't work. No, you're wrong. The numbers defy what you're saying. Right. The Republicans agreed with 186 out of 336.
The Democrats had 60 votes at the beginning of the Obama administration, 59 votes. So the Republicans have a much smaller majority than Democrats did when Obama took office.
So
which means that Democrats have more power to obstruct the president's nominees.
You know what?
Look, when I worked for Bill Frist, he was Senate Majority Leader during George Bush, that we saw Democrats then, particularly again Senator Schumer, who didn't like that president's nominees and was even possibly raising an issue of religious tests.
Remember that?
No, it never happened.
Yes, I do remember that.
I worked for him. It never happened. Let me explain something.
He said that Catholic nominees on the abortion issue should have to explain that because of Roe v. Wade, and it was raising the specter of a religious test. We've seen it before, and we're seeing it happening now.
The difference is, Amy, when you and I worked in the Senate, the Republicans and the Democrats talked to each other, and a Republican president would reach out to the Democratic leader and said, hey, let's work on these nominations together. That's not happening anymore.
You're not going there. You don't dare go there with me. Let me tell you something.
True.
Donald Trump has invited them all to the White House. He's brought them there, and Barack Obama didn't even have his own team to the White House.
If you remember, when Gorsuch was taken up to Capitol Hill to meet with senators, there were Democratic senators who refused to meet with him.
I don't agree with that.
Well, it's the truth. You don't agree with the truth. You sound like the mainstream
what I'm saying
media.
is I don't agree senators should not see a Supreme Court nominee or any high-level cabinet nominee. They should absolutely
you remember that they were refusing.
There were a few of them that were taking some stances for ridiculous reasons on that. You got to at least meet with a guy and hear him out when he's going to be on the highest court in the land. I believe in that.
Did you hear Alan Dershowitz, the renowned professor? There's no such thing as treason, no such thing as collusion, all this hogwash. Nancy Pelosi. I got to tell you, this is the one I really love. It's clear Sean Spicer, Reince Priebus, Paul Ryan, who were part of the RCCC, are liable for aiding and abetting and could be prosecuted and go to jail. What is wrong with your party? What is wrong with them?
Judge, first of all, I'm a St. John's lawyer, so I don't really like when Harvard lawyers try to tell me about the law. So Alan Dershowitz, you know where you can go.
He's brilliant. Go ahead, Amy, last word, because I got to go.
It's obviously, it's absurd. If we couldn't even charge Johnny Jihad with treason, we're talking about Sean Spicer. Give me a break.
Drips killed. There are 5 lawyers lining up.
Amy and Chris, we like you as a team. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Pleasure.
And my exclusive look inside the Museum of the Bible coming up. And next, ISIS and North Korea. An expert's take on what's really going on. Colonel David Hunt is next. A big win over ISIS this week in Iraq and a military parade there today to celebrate. U.S.-backed Iraqi forces were finally able to recapture that country's second largest city, Mosul, after a months-long siege. Joining me now with more on this victory and what's ahead in the fight, Fox News military analyst Colonel David Hunt. All right, good evening, Colonel.
Hi.
Hi. Now, we're looking at this map, January of 2015. What appears in red or orange is the ISIS caliphate?
Part of it. The other part of the caliphate was in Syria. But this shows how much territory Iraq lost to ISIS in a 3-year period. It was over a third of the country was gone.
All right, and the big cities, of course, Mosul, Raqqa, and what we're seeing January 16 now. Why don't you tell us what's going on there?
Sure. I mean, they were within 60 miles of Baghdad. ISIS was, and the Iraqi army had run off the battlefield. U.S. had to go in and help rebuild it. Kurds helped. And it was almost 3 years to get them where we are up to Mosul. The difference has been new administration took a lot of the restrictions off, let the commanders on the ground do a lot more. We dropped a lot more bombs, a lot more aggressive, and we got through Mosul probably 60 days ahead of schedule.
So, you know, at least now we have a president who gives the men and women in the field the ability to, you know, do what they've got to do, not tie their hands behind their backs, give them a little more decision making, and he's following through on what he said he would do.
What he's doing is not interfering with the Secretary of Defense, which is a big deal. It hasn't happened in my lifetime. I'm hoping the Secretary of Defense eases up on the military. The chain of command adheres to what the president started. Because what's happened is you get a restricted battlefield, rules of engagement that have got our guys killed.
Right.
I'm hoping the example that's being set will be carried all the way through the chain of command. But one of the reasons this fight ended as quickly as it did now, last 25 weeks, was that the military was allowed to do a lot more.
All right, so we've lost Mosul before. Yeah, and then, but so now that, you know, ISIS is out, Iraq has declared that it's free of ISIS, what happens now? Is Iraq in a position to defend itself?
That is the question. The U.S. military with the Kurds and the Iraqi military, with all the bombs we dropped and all the guys fighting, was never in doubt that we'd eventually get ISIS out. It was always a question is what do you do with the failed state of Iraq, then Syria, because we've got a failed state equals terrorism. All right. And that question has not been answered.
All right. And very quickly, what does this mean to Americans?
ISIS is a worldwide terrorist organization. ISIS on the run is good for us. It makes it a little bit safer. But again, without solving what happens to Iraq and Syria, it won't go away.
All right, I want to move on to North Korea. All right, now you were stationed for 6 years in Korea, the Korean Peninsula.
Yep.
And what exactly were you doing there?
I was a battalion commander, company commander, and I worked on the staff during the Olympics.
Okay, all right, so we got North Korea now, and the amazing thing is that this week, the president of South Korea, Moon Jae-in, suspended deployment of the U.S. missile defense system that the Pentagon rushed to give to South Korea in case wackadoo Kim Jong-un in North Korea hit them if he found out we were going to hit North Korea. So what's going on?
It's a terrible political decision made by South Korea because China didn't like it. It doesn't make any sense to us. And it may have appeared provocative to the wackadoodle you've already talked about, in North Korea.
Oh.
The issue here is that this black line you have here, it's 137 mile wide.
Right.
Along that is 155,000 pieces of artillery and rockets. This city of Seoul, which is anywhere from 10 to 30 million people, depending how you draw that circle, is 30 miles from that much artillery. It's most artillery in the world. And that is the issue, the fact that Seoul is held hostage to whatever we decide to do.
Okay, so why, I may not be getting this, but wouldn't the president of South Korea say, I need every protection I can get? And if he thinks that Kim Jong-un is going to see our helping them defend themselves against that wackadoo, then I'm a little worried about where they are in terms of their mental health.
You'd understand the politics better than I do, but the problem is we had a president kicked out of South Korea, brand new president, trying to get a feel for the ground. Of course, we disagree with it militarily. Politically, probably a lot of pressure. And as you know, the South Koreans aren't nearly as concerned with North Korea as we are, because they've been doing it for 50 years, and they know we're there with them. We have 30,000 soldiers in South Korea, so we've got a lot of people there.
All right, Colonel David Hunt, always good to have you on the show. Thanks for being with us tonight. And your exclusive look inside the yet-to-open Museum of the Bible. You don't want to miss this. Next. This week, I was invited to tour the Museum of the Bible, due to open this fall in Washington, D.C. It was an awesome experience that I won't soon forget. In fact, they gave me a scarf, and here's my hard hat. It says Judge. I want you to take a look at this. I was blown away.
Now we have something special for Judge Jeanine, because we all need to wear a hard hat, and I know what impeccable, beautiful taste she has. So I made this special glittery hard hat. Oh my goodness, Jeanine!
Oh, it's going to fall off. This place is going to open in November. You're not going to believe what you're about to see.
This was just installed.
What are we seeing here?
A 150-foot long digital ceiling where we'll rotate biblical art and images throughout the entire day.
Okay, and is that Noah's Ark? I'm looking at Noah's Ark.
That is Noah's Ark. Now, this is temporary content. We'll eventually have all kinds of biblical art, famous biblical art that will rotate up here. Actually, this could be the Sistine Chapel, or it could be the Last Supper by Da Vinci, or it could just be a nighttime sky, anything that would bring to mind the Bible.
Wow, the whole idea of the Last Supper, the Sistine Chapel, all that is going to be reflected in the ceiling here.
Right.
Okay, what is the significance of the dark marble and then it gets lighter?
Well, we think it's very cool the way they set this up, because when you first walk in, it's dark, and as you see, it gradually turns into lighter marble. When the further we go into the museum, it kind of depicts from darkness into light, just like the Bible.
Right now we're on the impact floor, where the museum will start to show the impact of the Bible on all different areas of life. What is so significant to me is that Western concepts of justice are strongly rooted in the Bible, an eye for an eye. But the Bible also conveys, according to this, a profound story of divine mercy in which God continually forgives. And in that vein, there are career criminals that we're seeing up here who have devoted themselves to the Bible, and there are studies that indicate that the recidivism rates drop tremendously when inmates studied the Bible. Billy Graham. Martin Luther King. And for those of you who might not know it, I love fashion. Little, however, did I know that the Bible has such a big impact on fashion. And it says that a number of fashion designers use the Bible as a creative source. They generate ideas from descriptions in the Bible. I'm opening a present. I love presents. Oh, Museum of the Bible inaugural women's silk scarf displays the calligraphy from 16th century Psalter, a collection of psalms compiled for liturgical use. And it is, oh, it's beautiful. You are going to see for the first time an unveiling. It is the Liberty Bell. Its relevance, 1, 2, 3, is that it has scripture on it from Leviticus. It's 3,300 pounds, and it is beautiful. This Liberty Bell was cast in the same foundry as the original Liberty Bell. This is as close as you get to the original. And now I'm going to ring it, I think. Does it ring? It does ring? What you just heard is a perfect E-flat, which the original Liberty Bell was tuned to as well. but no one has heard that since 1846. The Liberty Bell is cracked. It was last heard in honor of George Washington's birthday. But today, or in November at the Museum of the Bible, you can hear it as though you were there hundreds of years ago.
This is the finished theater. The walls are wavy to depict the idea of the tabernacle. When house lights are on, it looks like light streaming through the top there. But the most fun part is that the walls and the ceiling are digitally mapped, which means we can create whatever kind of atmosphere we want in this theater. And it could look like that, for example, just at the touch of a button.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I am so blown away by this. This is just so spectacular. We'll be right back. Before we end the show tonight, I wanted to share an experience I had a few weeks ago at the National Sheriff's Association annual conference in Reno, Nevada, where sheriffs from around the country gathered and